The wind on the Shadow Ridge doesn't just blow, it screams, like 1,000 trapped souls begging for a mercy that will never come. We stood at the rusted threshold of a place that military maps had spent 40 years trying to erase, a skeletal ruin of iron and concrete, clinging to the frozen rock like a parasite. This was Station Echo 7, a ghost of the Cold War. A facility that had been officially decommissioned in 1979 after every single soul inside vanished in a single night. To the men in Washington who signed the order, this was just a strategic reopening, a tactical necessity in a changing world. But as we stood before those massive, hydraulic sealed doors, the air that hissed out from the darkness within didn't feel like oxygen. It felt like a warning. It was a cold, stagnant breath that smelled of old copper, dried blood, and a rot that time had failed to cure. Every soldier is trained to ignore fear, to suppress the instinct that tells you to run. But there is a specific kind of dread that bypasses training and hits you straight in the marrow of your bones. As our tactical lights cut through the thick, oily shadows of the main corridor, the silence wasn't empty. It was heavy. It was a pulsing, unnatural quiet that seemed to vibrate through the soles of our boots. The signs were everywhere, if only we had been allowed to look. The reinforced fences bent outward as if something had tried to claw its way out. The strange, vertical scratches on the steel walls, and the way the local villagers at the base of the mountain would turn their backs whenever we mentioned the ridge. Some doors are closed to keep the world out, but others are closed to keep something in. Reopening Station Echo 7 wasn't a mission, it was a violation. And as the heavy doors slammed shut behind us, echoing with the terrifying finality of a coffin lid, only one thought remained in my mind. A thought that would haunt me for the rest of my life. We shouldn't be here. We have broken a seal that was never meant to be touched. And now, the silence is finally starting to speak back.
To understand why we felt the way we did, you have to understand where we were. We weren't just in a remote part of the world. We were at the edge of it. Station Echo 7 didn't sit in a valley or near a road where help could reach us in hours. It sat on the jagged, ice-bitten peak of the Shadow Ridge, a mountain so desolate that the locals believed it was a place where the sun went to die. The mountain itself looked like a broken tooth of gray granite, constantly shrouded in a thick, swirling mist that moved with a strange, deliberate intelligence. As our transport helicopter fought the violent updrafts of the ridge, I looked down at the terrain below. It was a labyrinth of deep canyons and frozen rock, where the shadows never truly retreated, even at noon. When the pilot finally banked towards the landing pad, the outpost came into view. It was a skeletal ruin of rusted steel and gray concrete, clinging to the cliffside like a parasite. It looked dead, frozen in time, a relic of a secret war that had ended before any of us were born. There was no green here, no signs of life, just the whistling wind and the groaning of metal under the pressure of the mountain air. We were a team of 4, sent by men in clean suits to do the work of ghosts. Leading us was Sergeant Silas Miller, a man who looked like he had been carved from the very rock of the Shadow Ridge. Miller was Old Guard, a veteran of Black Ops missions that officially never happened. He carried an ancient, customized rifle and an even heavier silence. He didn't talk about his past, and he didn't ask us about ours. He just watched the horizon with eyes that had seen too much, his jaw permanently set in a hard look. He was our anchor, but in a place like Echo 7, even anchors can be dragged into the abyss. Then there was Sarah Jenkins, our tech and comms specialist. She was brilliant, a woman who lived in the world of frequencies and data. But as we stepped onto that helipad, Jenkins wasn't looking at her maps. She was staring at her tablet with a look of pure confusion. The sensors were screaming, picking up electromagnetic interference that defied physics. She was the one who noticed the small things, the way the radio static sounded like rhythmic breathing, or the way the compass needles would spin aimlessly the closer we got to the main doors. The youngest among us was Private Cale Vance. He was new blood, full of the naive bravado that comes with being 20 years old and thinking you're invincible. He cracked jokes about haunted houses and ancient curses, trying to hide the fact that his hands were shaking as he gripped his M4. Vance was the heart of the squad, the one who reminded us that we were still human. But in the silence of the ridge, his laughter felt thin, fragile, like glass about to shatter. And then there was me, Elias Thorne. I was the observer, the one tasked with documenting the reopening. I had spent my career studying military archives, but nothing in the dusty files of Washington had prepared me for the physical sensation of standing before Station Echo 7. Our mission was wrapped in layers of deniability. Officially, we were there to re-establish the long-range surveillance array. We were told that the site was a strategic asset, a window into the movements of our enemies across the border. We were supposed to secure the perimeter, clear the interior, and wait for a specialist team to arrive in 72 hours. But as I looked at the orders, I noticed the inconsistencies. Why send only 4 people to secure a facility built for 50? Why was there no record of the previous crew's evacuation? And why did the orders explicitly state, under no circumstances should the lower levels be explored without the presence of the specialist team? We were there to break the seal, to wake up a sleeping beast, and we were doing it for reasons we didn't fully understand. It was a silent decision made by men who would never have to step foot on this mountain, men who viewed us as nothing more than keys to a locked door. The environment of Station Echo 7 was the true enemy. The moment the helicopter blades stopped spinning, the silence descended like a physical weight. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was a pulsing, heavy quiet that seems to vibrate in the back of your skull. The air was thin, cold, and tasted like ozone and dried blood. The outpost was surrounded by 3 layers of reinforced fencing, and as we approached the main gate, Vance pointed out something that made us all stop. The steel posts weren't bent inward from a storm or an attack. They were bent outward, as if something immense had tried to claw its way out from the inside. The concrete walls were stained with dark, vertical streaks that looked like soot, but when I touched them, they felt like cold, dried oil. As we forced open the massive, hydraulic-sealed doors, the sound of metal grinding against metal echoed for miles across the valley. It wasn't just a door opening. It felt like a violation of a grave. Inside, the air was stagnant, smelling of ancient copper and stagnant rot. The lights were dead, and our tactical beams cut through shadows that were thick and oily, clinging to the walls as if they were alive. We found the reopening logs on the floor of the guard station. The ink faded to a ghost-like gray. The clocks in the hallway had all stopped at exactly 3:14, 40 years ago. We were standing in a tomb, a place where time had been paused by a catastrophe we couldn't yet name. We were 4 men in a dead zone, connected to a mission that felt less like a tactical operation and more like a death sentence. The setup was complete. The players were inside. The heavy steel doors hissed shut behind us, sealing us into the darkness of the Shadow Ridge. We were now the new residents of Station Echo 7, and as the wind began to howl outside, sounding like 1,000 crying voices, we realized the terrifying truth. We weren't there to reopen a base. We were there to feed a silence that had been hungry for 40 years. The deeper we descended into the belly of Station Echo 7, the more the architecture began to change. The upper levels were standard military concrete and steel, but as we reached sub-level 4, the walls seemed to narrow, and the temperature plummeted to a bone-chilling frost. It was here, in the absolute heart of the ridge, that we found the reason this place had been erased from history. In the center of a massive, circular chamber sat an object that defied every law of military engineering. It was a vault door, or at least, that's what it looked like at first. It was 10 feet tall, made of a pitch-black, obsidian-like material that didn't reflect our tactical lights. It didn't just absorb light, it seemed to swallow it. There were no handles, no keypads, no visible hinges. Instead, the surface was etched with intricate, pulsating symbols that didn't look like any human language. They looked like veins, or roots, twisting and turning in patterns that made your eyes ache if you stared too long. Miller stepped toward it, his gloved hand trembling as he reached out. "This isn't Cold War tech," he whispered, his voice hollow in the vast chamber. "This is older, much older." Jenkins set up her scanners, but the screens just flickered with chaotic white noise. The Slab, as we began to call it, sat there like a silent god, radiating a low-frequency hum that felt like a vibration in our very marrow. It wasn't just a door, it was a seal, and according to our orders, we were the ones meant to break it. The silence of the chamber was broken at exactly 3:14 a.m. on our second night. We were huddled in the command post, the generator humming with a strained, desperate rhythm. Suddenly, the hum changed. It became a low, metallic grinding sound, like giant gears turning deep beneath the rock. And then, it came. Thump, thump, thump. 3 distinct, rhythmic knocks echoing from behind the black vault door. It wasn't the sound of a person knocking on a door. It was the sound of something massive, something heavy, striking the obsidian surface from the other side. The sound didn't travel through the air. It traveled through the floor, through our boots, and into our bones. Jenkins froze, her headset slipping from her ears. "I'm picking up a signal," she gasped, staring at her monitor. "It's not a radio transmission, it's a pulse. Every time that sound happens, the electromagnetic field spikes. It's like a heartbeat." We stood in the flickering light of the CP, rifles held tight, staring at the monitor. The knocking didn't stop. It was patient. It was measured. It was the sound of something that had been waiting for 40 years. And finally, it heard someone on the other side. I remembered then the warning we had received at the base of the mountain, a warning we had arrogantly ignored. Before we took the helicopter, we had met an old village elder named Zamir. He was a man whose skin was as wrinkled as the mountain itself, and his eyes were milky with cataracts. Yet he seemed to see things we couldn't. When we told him we were heading to the Shadow Ridge, he grabbed my arm with a strength that shocked me. "Do not go to the place of the shut mouth," he hissed, his breath smelling of bitter herbs. "The mountain is not a mountain. It is a cage. Your fathers came 40 years ago with their machines and their noise. They opened the mouth, and the mountain ate their souls. If you go, do not speak, do not listen. Because once the mountain hears a human voice, it will never let you leave." We had laughed it off as local superstition, the ramblings of an old man who didn't understand modern technology. But as the knocking continued from the sublevels, Zamir's words felt like a death sentence. The locals knew. They had always known. Station Echo 7 wasn't built to defend the border. It was built to guard the mouth, and we had just handed it the key. As the hours bled into the third day,
The small incidents began to pile up, each one a crack in our collective sanity. It started with the clocks. Every single timepiece in the base, digital or analog, would reset to 3:14 every few minutes. No matter how many times Jenkins synced them to the satellite, they would inevitably snap back to that cursed time. Then came the shadows. Vance was the first to notice. He was standing watch in the north corridor when he swore he saw a figure standing at the end of the hall. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It just stood there, a silhouette darker than the darkness around it. But when he turned his tactical light on it, there was nothing. "It's the light play, Vance," Miller had said. But I saw Miller checking his own 6 every time he walked through a doorway. I found the most disturbing glitch in my own gear. I was keeping a handwritten journal of our progress, documenting the reopening as per my mission. I opened my notebook to find that the last 5 pages were filled with writing that wasn't mine. It was my handwriting, my pen, but the words were nonsense. A repetitive, spiraling script that said, "The door is a mouth. The mouth is a door. Do not let the silence in." I don't remember writing it. I don't remember even opening my bag. Then there was the water. Our bladders were sealed, medical grade. But when I poured a cup to drink, the liquid was dark, almost like ink, and it smelled of old iron. When I blinked, it was clear again. We were losing our grip on what was real and what was a manifestation of the ridge. The environment was no longer just hostile. It was predatory. The curiosity loop was tightening around us. Every small event, every strange sound, every glitch was leading us back to that black vault on level 4. We wanted to run, but a morbid, unnatural curiosity was pulling us deeper. What was behind the door? Why did the clocks stop? Who wrote in my journal? The silent decision to reopen this place was now revealing its true face. We weren't there to watch an enemy. We were there to be watched. The mystery wasn't just about the base anymore. It was about the mountain itself. And as the third night descended, and the knocking from level 4 grew louder, faster, more desperate, we realized that the shut mouth was finally, slowly, beginning to open. And we were the only thing standing in the way of whatever was trying to scream. Sleep was no longer a refuge at Station Echo 7. It was a battlefield. By the 4th night, the thin line between our waking world and the darkness of the ridge began to dissolve. It started with Private Vance, but soon we were all infected. These weren't normal dreams. They were visceral, high-definition nightmares that felt more real than the cold concrete walls of the bunker. Every time I closed my eyes, I wasn't in my bunk. I was standing in a vast, endless field of gray ash under a sky that burned with a sickly, dying violet light. In the dream, the Shadow Ridge wasn't a mountain. It was a colossal, rib-like structure made of calcified bone. I would walk toward the center, my feet sinking into the ash, and there I would find the black vault of level 4. But in the dream, it was open. It wasn't a door. It was a throat. And from that throat came a sound that I can only describe as a million-voiced sob. I saw faces I didn't recognize, men in old, tattered uniforms from the 70s, their eyes replaced by glowing, amber coals. They didn't speak with their mouths. They spoke directly into my brain, a repetitive, rhythmic chanting that sounded like, "The seal is thin, the breath is near. Let the silence drink your fear." I would wake up screaming.
my skin caked in a cold, oily sweat, only to find Miller or Jenkins staring at me with the same hollow, haunted expression. We were all seeing the same thing. We were all being prepared for something. The silent decision to reopen this place hadn't just brought us to the mountain. It had allowed the mountain to crawl inside our heads. If the dreams were the invasion, the voices were the siege. Sarah Jenkins was the first to truly break under the auditory pressure. As our comms specialist, she spent hours with her headset on, trying to reach the specialist team that was supposed to arrive. But the radio didn't bring help. It brought them.
"It's not static, Elias," she whispered to me, her eyes wide and bloodshot, her hands trembling so hard she couldn't hold her coffee cup. "Listen, really listen." I took the headset, and at first, it was just the usual crackle of atmospheric interference. But then, as I tuned the frequency, the static began to shift. It shaped itself into words, not just any words, but personal, intimate secrets. I heard my mother's voice calling my name from 1,000 miles away. I heard the voice of a friend I'd lost in a training accident years ago, whispering, "It's warmer in the dark, Elias. Come down to level 4. It's so much warmer here." The voices didn't just come through the radio. They came through the ventilation shafts, through the humming of the generator, and through the very vibrations of the walls. They were layered, dozens of them overlapping in a chaotic, maddening choir. Sometimes they spoke in English, sometimes in a guttural, ancient tongue that made my ears bleed. They weren't just noises, they were messages. They were telling us that the mouth was hungry, and that we were the invitation it had been waiting for. Physical reality began to betray us on the 5th morning. Sergeant Miller had ordered a complete lockdown of the sublevels. Yet, when we went down to level 3 to check the secondary power grid, we found the impossible. Spread across the dusty, concrete floor of the main corridor were footprints. Bare footprints. They weren't the prints of a soldier in boots or a local in sandals. They were large, elongated, and the toes were unnaturally long, ending in sharp, needle-like points. But the most terrifying part wasn't the shape, it was where they came from. The prints didn't start at a door or a vent. They appeared out of nowhere in the middle of the hallway, as if someone had just materialized out of the air. They led straight toward the elevator shaft that descended to level 4, and then they just stopped at the edge of the pit. Miller knelt down, touching the dust. "They're cold," he muttered, his voice trembling with a rare flash of fear. "Not just room temperature, they're freezing, like they were made of dry ice." We checked the security cameras, but the screens showed nothing but a flickering gray void. The sensors didn't trip. The alarms didn't sound. Something was walking through our base, something that didn't have a weight, but left a mark. Something that was already inside the wire, and it was moving closer to us with every hour. The escalation reached its breaking point at 3:14 a.m. on the 6th night. We were all in the command post, huddled together for a sense of safety that we knew was an illusion. Private Cale Vance was on the first watch, standing just 10 feet away from us at the main monitor. I remember him complaining about a draft, a cold wind that seemed to be coming from the floorboards. Miller told him to stay sharp. I looked down at my journal for maybe 30 seconds to record the time. In that brief window of silence, there was no struggle, no scream, no sound of a weapon firing. Just a soft, wet thud, like a heavy sponge hitting the floor. When I looked up, Vance was gone. His rifle was lying on the floor, the safety still off. His helmet was spinning slowly on the concrete, and his tactical light was rolling toward the corner, casting a frantic, sweeping beam of light across the room. We scrambled to our feet, screaming his name, but there was no answer. The heavy hydraulic doors of the CP were still locked from the inside. There was no way out, and no way in. "Vance! Vance, answer me!" Miller roared, his rifle raised. We searched every inch of that tiny room, every cabinet, every corner. He was gone. It was as if the air had simply opened up and swallowed him whole. And then, the radio on the desk crackled to life. It wasn't Vance's voice. It was the million-voiced sob from my dreams. And beneath the static, I heard a tiny, wet whisper that sounded exactly like Cale Vance. "It's open, Sarge. The mouth is finally open." The tension didn't just rise, it shattered. We were no longer a tactical team on a mission. We were prey, trapped on a frozen mountain with an entity that could rewrite the laws of physics. The silent decision had led us to the slaughterhouse, and as the ground beneath our boots began to vibrate with that deep, rhythmic knocking once again, we realized the terrifying truth. The specialist team wasn't coming to help us. They were coming to see what was left of us. And as the lights in the command post began to flicker and die, one by one, we realized that in the darkness of Station Echo 7, there was no such thing as a missing soldier. There was only the found. And whatever was behind that door on level 4, it had finally found us. With Vance gone, and the air itself screaming with the voices of the dead, Sergeant Miller and I knew there was only one path left. We couldn't wait for the specialist team, because the specialist team was never coming to save us. We grabbed every remaining brick of C4, every frag grenade, and our primary weapons. We descended into the throat of the mountain, back down to level 4. The elevator was dead, so we climbed down the emergency ladder, our hands slipping on a cold black slime that was now oozing from the walls like the blood of the ridge itself. When we reached the circular chamber of the Black Vault, the world as we knew it ceased to exist. The obsidian slab wasn't just open, it had dissolved. In its place was a shimmering, pulsating tear in reality, a gateway to a dimension that the human mind was never meant to perceive. And the truth we found there was more terrifying than any ghost story. Station Echo 7 wasn't a surveillance base. It was a harvesting station. The silent decision made 40 years ago wasn't to study this place. It was to feed it. Inside the void, I didn't see monsters with claws or teeth. I saw a sea of faces, thousands of them, suspended in a thick amber liquid that defied gravity. I saw the crew from 1979, their bodies preserved but their souls stretched thin. And in the center, I saw Private Cale Vance. He was being pulled into the mass, his skin turning gray, his eyes glowing with that same sickly amber light. This wasn't a prison. It was a hive. The mountain was a biological machine, and it required human consciousness to keep the mouth from swallowing the entire ridge. Our own command had sent us here as maintenance, as fuel to keep the seal from breaking entirely. The moment our tactical lights hit the mass of faces, the knocking stopped. The silence that followed was so loud, it felt like a physical blow. And then, they began to emerge. Not fast, but with a slow, deliberate grace that was sickening to watch. They crawled out of the void, gray, naked figures that looked like half-formed clay. They didn't have mouths, yet the chamber was filled with a deafening, layered scream that vibrated through the very foundation of the mountain. "Miller, behind you!" I screamed. But it was too late. One of the entities, its fingers long and needle-like, reached out from the shadows of the ceiling. It didn't strike him. It simply touched his forehead. Miller didn't fight back.
His rifle fell to the floor with a hollow clang. He just stood there, his eyes rolling back until only the whites were visible. "It's so quiet, Elias," he whispered, his voice no longer his own. "I can finally hear the mountain. It's beautiful." Panic took over. I opened fire, the muzzle flashes of my rifle illuminating the chamber in frantic strobe-like bursts. The bullets tore through the gray figures, but there was no blood. They just dissolved into a fine black ash that swirled in the air before pulling itself back together. Every time I killed one, two more emerged from the void. I was a soldier trained for war, but how do you fight something that treats your bullets like a gentle breeze? The atmosphere was thick with the smell of ozone and rot, and the temperature dropped until my breath was a thick, white cloud in front of my face. I dragged Miller back toward the ladder, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Miller, wake up! We have to blow the seal!" He didn't respond. He was a shell, his mind already being integrated into the hive. I realized then that I couldn't save him, and I couldn't save Vance. I was the only one left who could stop the mouth from fully opening and consuming everything in its path. I began to set the C4 around the structural pillars of the chamber. My hands were shaking, sweat stinging my eyes. The gray figures were closing in, their elongated limbs scraping against the concrete. They were chanting now, the million-voiced sob rising to a fever pitch. I saw Vance's face in the mass one last time, and for a split second, the amber glow in his eyes flickered out. He looked at me, a single, silent tear of blood tracing down his cheek. "Close it, Elias," he mouthed. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, to look at my friends, my squad, and realize the only way to save them was to bury them. I grabbed the detonator and scrambled back up the ladder as the entities began to swarm over the explosives. Miller stood in the center of the room, looking up at me, a small, sad smile on his face. He knew. He had always known that this is how it would end for a man like him. I reached the third level and dived behind a reinforced blast door. I didn't wait. I didn't pray. I just squeezed the trigger on the detonator. The world turned white. The explosion didn't just sound like a blast. It sounded like the mountain itself was screaming in agony. The ground heaved, throwing me against the steel wall. I felt the shockwave pass through my lungs, knocking the air out of me. Above the roar of the explosion, I heard the voices cut off in an instant, replaced by a sound of rushing air, as if the void was being sucked back into the earth. The structural integrity of Level 4 collapsed. Thousands of tons of granite and concrete came crashing down, sealing the black vault under a mountain of rubble. The vibration lasted for minutes, a slow, grinding groan that felt like the ridge was settling back into a deep, uneasy sleep. When the dust finally settled, I was alone in the dark. No voices, no knocking. Just the sound of my own frantic, ragged breathing. I had closed the door, but I had paid a price that no military medal could ever repay. I had lost my team. I had lost my sanity. And I had discovered that the people I served were the very ones who had led us to the slaughter. The silent decision had been defeated for now. But the silence that remained in Station Echo 7 was the heaviest thing I had ever carried. I crawled toward the surface, toward the gray, morning light of the Shadow Ridge, knowing that while I had escaped the mountain, a part of me would always be trapped on Level 4, suspended in the amber light, waiting for the next specialist team to arrive. and reopen the wound.
The mountain didn't celebrate my victory. It didn't groan in defeat. As I stumbled out of the shattered maw of Station Echo 7, the Shadow Ridge greeted me with a cold, indifferent silence that felt heavier than the explosion itself. I was covered in gray ash and frozen blood, my lungs burning with the smell of C4 and ancient rot. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Miller's sad smile and Vance's bleeding eyes. I was the only physical survivor of the reopening, but as I began the long, agonizing descent down the rock face, I realized that survival was a relative term. My tactical watch had finally started ticking again, but it wasn't keeping real time. It was fast, frantic, as if it was trying to make up for the 40 years that had been stolen from this place. I reached the base of the ridge just as the sun began to peek over the horizon, a weak, pale, yellow light that offered no warmth. Zamir, the old village elder, was standing by the trail. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't ask about the others. He just looked at my hollow eyes and nodded slowly. "The mouth is closed," he whispered. "But the mountain has tasted you, Elias. It will always know your scent now." 2 hours later, the sound of twin-rotor Chinooks thundered through the valley. This was the specialist team we had been waiting for. They didn't arrive like rescuers. They arrived like a cleanup crew. Men in sterile, white hazmat suits and unmarked black uniforms swarmed the landing zone. They didn't offer me a blanket or a medic. They stripped me of my gear, confiscated my journals, and threw me into a windowless transport van. Through the small, reinforced glass of the back door, I watched them move toward the ridge with industrial drilling equipment and massive crates of specialized seals. They weren't surprised by the destruction. They didn't look for survivors. They looked like they were simply resetting a trap that had accidentally snapped shut too early. I saw a high-ranking officer, a man in a clean, pressed uniform, standing near the perimeter. He looked at the smoking ruins of Echo 7 and checked his watch. He wasn't mourning the loss of a tactical squad. He was calculating the downtime before the next cycle could begin. In the weeks of debriefing that followed, the truth finally settled into my marrow like a slow-acting poison. They kept me in a black site facility, asking me the same questions over and over, trying to see if I had retained any of the voices. That's when I saw the file on the desk of my interrogator. It was titled Project Mouthpiece, Maintenance Cycle 14. I realized then, with a soul-crushing clarity, that the silenced decision wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an oversight by a bored commander. It was a calculated sacrifice. Every 40 years, the seal on the Shadow Ridge weakens. And every 40 years, Command sends a small, expendable team to reopen the base, to feed the silence with fresh fear and fresh consciousness, and then close it again through a planned catastrophe. We weren't soldiers holding a position. We were the fuel for a biological lock. Miller knew. Maybe that's why he smiled. He knew that in the grand scheme of war history, some men are the swords, and some men are just the oil that keeps the machine running. It has been 10 years since I left the Shadow Ridge. Officially, I was discharged for psychological trauma resulting from a training accident. There is no record of Station Echo 7. There is no record of Silas Miller, Sarah Jenkins, or Cale Vance. They have been erased from the archives, replaced by redacted lines and empty folders. But the silence, it never really left me. I live in a quiet house in a quiet town, but at exactly 3:14 a.m. every night, the world changes.
The lights in my house flicker, and the air turns thin and cold, smelling of ancient copper. And then I hear it. Thump, thump, thump. 3 rhythmic knocks coming from beneath my floorboards, or perhaps from inside my own skull. The mountain didn't let me go. It just gave me a longer leash. I know that somewhere on that jagged ridge, another team is being assembled. Another silent decision is being signed in a dark office. Another group of young, brave souls is about to break a seal they should never touch. And they will find my journal, or what's left of it, and they will read the words I never remembered writing. The door is a mouth. The mouth is a door. Do not let the silence in. History isn't just a series of dates and battles. It is a collection of secrets, of things we bury because we aren't strong enough to face them. As you listen to this, remember that the ground beneath your feet has a memory, and some memories are hungry. This has been Silent War Archives. We tell the stories that weren't meant to be told, so that the silence doesn't win. Thank you for stepping into the darkness with us. If you value the truth, no matter how terrifying, subscribe and keep the archives open. But remember, some doors, once opened, can never truly be closed again. They say that time heals all wounds, but they never mention the scars that refuse to fade, the ones that itch when the air turns cold. I've tried to move on. I really have. I moved to a city where the lights never go out, hoping that the neon glow would drown out the memories of the Shadow Ridge. But you don't just leave a place like Station Echo 7. It hitches a ride in your marrow. It hides in the rhythmic thumping of your own heart. I look at my reflection in the mirror, and I don't see the man who flew into that ridge 10 years ago. I see a stranger with hollow eyes. A man who carries a silence so heavy, it threatens to crush my chest every time I try to speak the truth. I see the gray dust of Level 4 still clinging to the creases of my skin. Every shadow in the corner of my room looks like a gray, elongated figure waiting for me to blink. Every sudden drop in temperature makes me reach for a rifle that hasn't been in my hands for a decade. The trauma isn't a memory. It's a physical presence, a ghost that shares my bed and breathes my air. The faces of my squad haven't aged a day in my mind. I still see Vance's laugh, Miller's steady hand on my shoulder, and Jenkins's frantic typing on her tablet. They aren't just dead. They are part of the architecture of my life. They are the wind that rattles my windows, the ice that forms on the glass, and the low-frequency hum that I can never quite tune out. Sometimes, I find myself walking to my basement door in the middle of the night, my hand hovering over the handle, wondering if the specialist team has already arrived at my house to take me back to the hive. Because that's the final, most terrifying realization I've come to. The silent decision wasn't just about a base on a mountain. It was about a hunger that exists in every corner of the world we think we understand. We are the narrators of a story that someone else is writing in a dark room, using our blood as ink. The archives of war are never truly full, because the darkness is always looking for new pages, new souls to fill the void. As you sit there now, in the safety of your own room, listening to my voice, I want you to do something for me. Don't look behind you. Don't check the locks on your doors. Just listen to the silence around you. Have you ever heard a sound in the night that you couldn't explain? A soft tap on the wall, a whisper that sounds like your own name,
or a sudden chill in a room with no draft? Don't go looking for the source. Some things are better left in the shadows. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Because the truth is, the mouth doesn't just exist on a ridge in a far-off land. It's everywhere. It's waiting for a voice to call out, for a curious soul to break the seal. If you listen closely enough, and if the silence is deep enough, the mountain might just hear you too. And once it hears you, it never, ever stops listening. I think I hear it now. The knocking has started again. Thank you for listening to Silent War Archives. We hope, for your sake, this is the last time we have to speak.